Let's start a discussion with hard target.
That really makes me question your thought process. These are the best movies ever. I don't think Jean-Claude even liked these movies. So
You don't think so?
I don't know.
Well,
He did it for a paycheck?
He was coked up the entire time. So.
Dude. Okay, hard target. Matthew Kadish, why don't you set the stage for this fantastic movie? And don't forget the mullet, please. Just remember.
We're going to talk about that mullet.
I think we each have something to say about the mullet, how it affected us.
Okay.
All right. So Hard Target was Jean-Claude's follow-up to Time Cop. And it was his first movie with this legendary action director, John Woo. And basically, it's about a kind of merchant seaman who works out in New Orleans. He's kind of down on his luck, and he runs into this girl who's searching for her missing father. And she hires him to kind of be her guide through New Orleans as she's trying to find out what happened to her dad. And it turns out her dad was killed by an elite group of like manhunters, like literal manhunters, who basically charge rich people lots of money in order to facilitate these hunting down of like retired combat veterans and stuff like that. So it's basically the most dangerous game, but in New Orleans. And so throughout the course of this movie, Jean-Claude kind of stumbles across this shadowy organization, and he becomes one of their targets for, the hunt. And they pick the wrong guy to hunt, and he kind of switches the tables on him, starts hunting them down in the bayou. And it's basically just it's the most glorious 90s action movie you could think of. I mean, it's just
Going on record. This is it, number one.
Like schmaltzy, like terrible, like
slow-mo.
God, the slow motion.
Oh, we're going to talk about all that stuff.
it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
The doves.
The doves.
So, okay. So wait, before we get into this, like you guys are talking about a lot of stuff. So when I was in film school,
Back in Hollywood.
Back in Hollywood.
This was back in Pennsylvania. I went to film school. So like one of my idols as a director was this Hong Kong director named John Woo. And he was kind of like on the forefront of action cinema. He was the guy who was kind of doing stuff that made action balletic, like romantic, stuff like that. He was incorporating like the use of slow motion, and he would choreograph fight scenes almost like they were a ballet or a dance scene or something like that. And he was kind of taken the Hong Kong world by storm. He was making all these like really impressive action movies, and they were kind of filtering their way back to Hollywood. And Hollywood at the time wasn't making action movies anywhere near the level that he was. And so they kind of, no pun intended, wooed him over to America and said like, hey, let's give this guy a big budget Hollywood movie. And interestingly enough, Hard Target was the first big budget Hollywood movie from an actual Hollywood studio to be helmed by an Asian director, which was John Woo. And when I was in film school, I'll get into this in a little bit, this movie was actually like a Great White Buffalo scenario where John Woo had basically done a cut of this film, which was like, had an extra 30 minutes to the runtime. And the MPAA had given it an NC-17 rating because it was so violent.
Ooh.
And so they had to cut it back to get the R rating. And there was this bootleg copy of the original version of the movie that was kind of circulating around like film schools and stuff.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine got his hands on it.
The black market John Woo movies?
The black market. And it was one of these things that was like a work print cut. So like it had like the time code and stuff on it, but it was actually widescreen. And at the time, if you guys remember the video rental days, it was all pan and scan stuff, unless you got like a special edition. So I'd only ever seen this movie like outside of the theater in pan and scan version. And we had a saying in film school that with pan and scan, you miss half the joke because you don't get to see the whole picture as it was meant to be intended. And so my buddy, whose name was also Matt, ended up getting a bootleg copy of this thing from like, I don't know, like Japan, eBay or something like that. And like we were so excited when it came in the mail. We were like, we finally get to see the whole, like we don't get to miss the joke. And so, but it was still a terrible movie. But we got to see like the whole thing as John Woo kind of intended it to be seen. And it wasn't much better, but it was very much more John Woo. And for people out there who know of John Woo and like appreciate him, he's got these tropes, these John Woo tropes. He was kind of like the father of it's called gun fu, which is basically like kind of fighting and close quarters combats with guns. He was kind of the precursor to what eventually became The Matrix and John Wick and all this stuff.
What's that one with Batman? What's his name?
Val Kilmer?
No.
George
The
Clooney?
good
Michael
Batman.
Keaton.
No, the good Batman.
Oh, you're talking about
Equalizer?
Equilibrium.
Equilibrium.
Yeah, with the gun katas.
That was some hardcore gung fu.
Yeah, so like John Woo was kind of like the father of that, but he also was a guy like in every one of his movies he'd have like dark clad motorcyclists who were like shooting guns at people. He'd have doves flying in and out of frame. Like he'd have people with dual wielding pistols, firing guns with absolutely no kickback, like flying through the air and stuff like that. And so like when you watch Hard Target, and you guys were pointing out a lot of these things, it's like Hard Target's not a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. It's a John Woo movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme in it. And originally they actually, John Woo wanted to cast Kurt Russell as the main character. So that would have been a very different movie.
Yeah,
Would have been the
different.
same exact movie.
Exact same movie. Yeah.
I don't know. They added a lot of spin kicking thanks to Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Jean-Claude, he put his stamp on this movie for sure.
Well, Kurt Russell probably wouldn't have spin kicked that guy off the motorcycle.
No.
If you think Kurt Russell can't spin kick, I will fight you right now.
All right, so this was
only if he has an eye patch on.
so we've got Kadish's first time. Yeah.
Like I cannot wait to talk about this movie.
We are talking about it.
Well, you've been talking about it for 20 minutes.
I can't wait to really talk about it.
So this was my first time watching this movie. And God, is it glorious. It's so gloriously bad. 80s, 90s, whatever. I don't know. What year did this come out?
94.
94. So gloriously bad 90s. I think my favorite scene in the entire movie is when the forklift moves out of frame and you see Jean-Claude with his greasy mullet and it's slow motion, and then it turns and it pans onto the chick in the car and it zooms into her face and she's just so like, oh my God, now that's a man.
But that reveal is like three different shots faded into one another.
Yes.
It's like very typical John Woo, like
so
over the top, schmaltzy.
Oh my gosh, everything was so smalty about this,
and it had that weird twangy southern music to it.
Yeah, the
like the
banjo.
banjo.
Every time he did something badass, a banjo would play.
I liked it when they would do like edit cuts and Jean-Claude would be standing in front of the car in one cut and behind it in the other, and then back in front. Stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, the fight scenes. Let's talk about the fight scenes. He was a superhero, right? There was that one scene that you just mentioned about him. He kicked the guy off the motorcycle.
Yeah.
So the dude's driving like 30 miles an hour on the motorcycle, and Jean-Claude spin kicks him, and in the helmet,
Hits his helmet.
and it doesn't. He just takes it.
Probably should have broke his leg.
Yeah,
in half.
that would have broke his leg for sure. Yeah, but no, this dude just goes flying. Oh, the gun physics in this movie are fantastic too. You get shot with literally anything, a 9mm pistol, and you're going like halfway across the room.
There's two things in this movie that I appreciate. Number one is Wilford Brimley. He's the baddest,
I knew it.
baddest
Uncle
old dude in the world, right?
And is your second one his accent?
That was great.
Can you guys give me some context? I have no idea who that guy is.
You don't know who Wilford Brimley is?
You never watched Cocoon?
No.
You've never seen the
You've never
diabetes
seen
commercials?
a Quaker Oats
You've never
commercial?
seen the thing?
Diabetes.
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 That's that dude?
That's that dude, yeah.
Holy shit.
Hey, do you have diabetes?
Diabetes.
Yeah, that's him.
I did not know that was him.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. That gives me a
Yeah,
little bit
he
more context.
tripped me up when I found out a month or so ago that when Wilford Brimley filmed Cocoon, he's the same age then that I am now.
He always looked so
It
old.
freaked me out. You have no idea how
and
much that
he's
freaked
still
me out.
alive.
Is
Oh,
he
yeah.
really?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And the other thing I really appreciated was Lance Henriksen.
Oh, yeah.
I love Lance Henriksen.
Oh, he's so good in this.
He
just chews every
just-
scene he's in.
did I ever tell you the story about how I met him?
No.
I've met Lance Henriksen once. He'll never remember it, but and I felt like a total ass after I met him.
So
No,
just to make sure I know who you're talking about. You're talking about the
Lance Henriksen,
Lance
the bad
Henriksen.
guy.
the bad
He's been
guy.
in like
He's
500
Alien.
movies.
Aliens too.
Yeah, he's
Bishop,
Bishop,
right?
yeah.
And then he was Wayland later on in the
Yeah.
Alien vs. Predator movies.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So when I was a floor person at a casino up in Oregon, he used to film this show It was this
Millennium.
He filmed it in Canada, I believe in Vancouver or somewhere up there. And the casino I worked at was around a casino between California and Canada. And he would stop in on his way back and forth when he drove once in a while. And I finally worked up the gumption one time to go up to him while he's playing blackjack. And like an asshole, I go, "Hey, is that thing you do with the knife in the hand, is that real?" And he just looks at me like I'm a complete dick. And I just turned around and I walked away.
He didn't say anything to you?
I bet he remembers that.
He gave me a glare, dude. It's
Oh, I
like
guarantee
it's like
he remembers
it's like, are you for real right now?
I
buddy?
guarantee you he remembers that.
I got immediately embarrassed and I turned around and I walked away.
We need to see if we can get hold of him and be like, "Do you remember this jackass?"
It was so bad. It was so bad. I go, I can't believe those words came out of my mouth.
That's fantastic.
He is fantastic in this movie.
Oh, he's
like
awesome.
Like,
Okay, so
like there's a scene at the end where he catches on fire.
Oh, yeah,
and
he just takes it.
It's actually
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
and it's not like a quick thing. Like he's there, he's on fire, and he's like taking his jacket off in the most slow, like methodical way
just-
possible.
Like he's just annoyed by the fire.
Yeah, he just takes it like a badass.
But did you notice that you could see all the
fire
anti-fire
retardant
retardant
there?
on his face?
Yes.
Yeah,
Immediately afterwards, you could see he's just covered in slime.
yeah, his hair is all slick.
Yeah, for like one scene, and then it goes away and
Yeah.
he's back dries again. Yeah, that was a really cool scene though, because he just took it. He's like, "Man,
Well,
what did he say?" He's like, "You son of a bitch," and he just takes his jacket off, all casual.
Like Lance Hendrickson really wanted to work with John Woo, which was one of the reasons why he got cast in this movie, where he was like, "I'll do anything you want me to. I'll show up, like whatever." And they're like, "Well, you want to be the bad guy?" He's like, "Yeah."
he was the best character.
and he had that stupid 200-year-old single shot gun.
Yeah. Oh, that was
I was
amazing.
like, oh my god, this so
I understand why they went that way, because he's supposed to be like such a good shot that he only needs one bullet.
Yeah.
It's like a thing of pride with him.
Yeah.
But it's like the most ineffective weapon you could possibly be carrying around.
He might as well have had a crossbow or something.
But that gun was like you would load it with these like elephant shotgun shells.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it was
like-
I think it was a 45. What is it? I can't remember the name of the round, but I was going to buy a rifle that carries that same round. It's like it is an elephant gun. It's crazy.
like that was the gun where you shoot someone, they like fly across the room.
Yeah,
with it.
that it's not, you would just go through you, but yeah, totally.
it'd probably rip your shoulder out of its socket with the recoil too.
Not in a John Woo movie.
Not a John Woo movie. So real quick, I just wanted to mention something before I forget, because I will forget. The Most Dangerous Game is my all-time favorite short story ever. It was read to me by my third grade English teacher. The full like old school story, all in graphic detail. He sat in front of the third grade class and was like, he's an old military vet, and he actually looked like what's the guy's name?
Wilford Brimley.
Wilford. He looks just like him. His name was Mr. Kenny. I will never forget this guy.
Of course, his name was Mr.
Mr. Kenny, old school like veteran English teacher, and he read this story to us, and I was like, that is the most amazing story I've ever heard in my life.
Diabetes.
Diabetes. I love The Most Dangerous Game. So if there's any movie out there that's like based off of or takes points from The Most Dangerous Game, I'm in. And this movie was like, when I realized what the plot was, I was like, oh, The Most Dangerous Game. I'm like, yes, this is going to be fantastic. And it did not disappoint.
You're an odd little duck, Alex.
It was amazing.
The only thing this movie didn't have was boobs. I don't remember seeing any boobs.
No, there was no boobs.
They needed
Sorry.
boobs.
There was only one chick in the whole movie, right?
No, there were two. There was
the
cop.
detective that died. Yeah, that's right.
But
Spoiler.
the woman, the woman who was like the main female,
She's so beautiful.
she was a Witchblade, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
She was the actress who played Witchblade in the TV series.
But yeah, I love this movie. It was so much fun to watch. It just
We can't talk about Hard Target without talking about Jean-Claude's hair.
okay. Let's dedicate a good 10 minutes to that mullet.
It's mullet time.
It's mullet
I
time.
feel like we need like a sexy intro song.
It's mullet time.
And it was always wet, right?
No, not wet. Greasy.
Oh yeah.
That was like straight Crisco.
Straight out of the WWE.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny is, okay, so in Time Cop, he had kind of like the semi-mullet thing going.
Yeah. Mini mullet.
And then in this movie, they go full mullet. And the reason they did that is because he knew that he was going to be doing a lot of spin kicking. So he wanted his hair to have that whip factor to it. So it was very like strategically long and
I
greasy.
think they even permed it because that shit was curly.
Oh yeah, it was super curly.
But they grew it out to that length specifically so that when he's doing his spinning, it would whip around cinematically and look really good in slow motion. It's like an old wrestler kind of like.
I just kind of figured they were extensions or something.
It looked like extensions for a little bit. I wasn't sure. Do you guys know
So much hair
if
gel.
it's actually his hair?
I don't know. I think it was his hair. I mean, it was a time.
It was
90s.
his look, that greasy mullet with the black trench coat, the jeans with the tucked in shirt. My God. My God.
I also love how in like every 90s action movie, all the henchmen are wearing these like zoot suits.
Yeah.
You know,
I love all the guys that were on motorcycles never took their helmet off.
never. That's a John Woo thing.
Never took their helmet off. Doesn't matter if they were walking around a warehouse in the dark. They had their sun-shaded visor down.
And if they get punched in the helmet, they're like, they're all staggering.
Knocked me out. It was fantastic. Kadish, do you have anything else? Because this is very much like your movie, I think. I think you love this movie more than any of us. So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of stuff, that's very interesting about this movie.
He's got all
He's
these
got
notes.
3 pages of notes.
Better let him get through the
Both
notes.
sides.
I
Did
love
you
it.
see?
Both
Both
sides?
sides are filled
Okay,
up.
do you guys remember that scene from 7 where they had all the notebooks with the little tiny lettering in it? And
Yeah.
That's Kadish.
That's Kadish.
I'm taking a picture.
Just because I'm the only one who prepares for this podcast
It's all up here, sweetheart.
does not mean
yeah.
I should be ridiculed for
I
it.
got this. I just feed off of your genius. I'm like one of those little sucker fish on the shark. All right, go ahead. What else you got?
Well, so this was John Woo's first American movie, and when Universal was bringing him over, they were kind of worried about his ability to actually run a English speaking film because he didn't speak like very good English. So one of the interesting things is that during this time period, so Sam Raimi and his producing partner Robert Tappert, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Sam Raimi was the creator and director of the Evil Dead movies. He did the 2000 Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire. Very famous director. And he had just done Army of Darkness for Universal and also Darkman. And he had produced Time Cop. So he had this relationship with Jean-Claude Van Damme. And Time Cop is like Jean-Claude Van Damme's biggest movie of all time. So.
Sam Raimi produced.
Yeah, Sam Raimi and Robert Tappert produced Time Cop. And so Universal went to Sam Raimi and they were like, hey, can you be on set with John Woo? And if things don't work out with him, we want you to take over the picture. And so Sam Raimi was like the ghost director on Hard Target, but he never actually directed anything because he was actually John Woo's biggest defender. Like when the studio people came and tried to meddle with him, Sam Raimi got up in their faces and he was like, you let John Woo do his fucking thing. and so
you leave John Woo
exactly
alone.
Yeah, that was his job. And like Sam Raimi was like his biggest defender.
That's awesome.
And, but you can also see like Sam Raimi's influence in the movie because like that part where like the arrow's spinning and you got like that weird background that's like flying by.
Yeah.
That's pure Sam Raimi right there. So Sam Raimi and John Woo got along very well. And John Woo even said like the only time he ever saw Sam Raimi on set was when he showed up because he wanted to go out to dinner with him. So I
Makes
thought,
sense.
I thought that was good. But John Woo was also on record as saying like he had a difficult time working with Van Damme. Because there's a story that he told where
Wait, John Woo said that or Sam Raimi?
John Woo said that.
John Woo said that. Okay.
Yeah. So John Woo has this story about how the way he films stuff, he uses multiple cameras to like catch like different things. So he'll shoot a scene with like 4 cameras on like one actor, that type of thing. So he'll have like close up, medium shot, wide shot, stuff like that. And Jean-Claude Van Damme one day he was like, John, I must have a camera for my muscles. and John Woo was like, what do you mean camera for your muscles? He's like, people come to my movies to see my muscles. I want close-ups of my muscles. I work very hard for these muscles. And John Woo was like,
I can respect that.
no, he didn't say that. John Woo was like, well, I've got 4 cameras on you already. I'll just focus one of them on your muscles. And so like every shot that Jean-Claude, when he was like showing off his arms, especially like in the third act of the film.
Oh yeah.
They always had to have a camera on his arms, just his arms. and John Woo, like when someone asks him, it's like Mr. Woo, are you sure you want to spend all this time focusing on his muscles? And he's like, I'm not going to use any of it. It's just to make him happy.
They really didn't, though. You know what happened? Street Fighter focused a lot on his muscles.
Well, this was hard target.
I know.
But I mean, like there's just so many things in this movie that are like, me as a John Woo fan, like I just can't get enough. Like the doves, like every scene where like the doves are like flying around. It's like
that's a big thing for him.
And then
it really is.
Like there's like the slow motion, which is a trope, and then there's the doves, which is a trope, and then there's like the slow motion doves. It's John Woo, you crazy man.
I always remember John Woo with the doves because my introduction
Mission Impossible 2.
Mission Impossible 2. Yes, there was multiple
Way
scenes,
overdone.
Way overdone. Slow motion doves, slow motion everything in that movie, and that was my introduction to John Woo movies. I was like, oh, he did Mission Impossible 2. And every time I watch any other of his movies, I can't help but just be like, oh.
But when Jude and I were watching this, there were so many times where like I'd point to the screen, I'd be like, babe, wait for it. And like there was this line of dialogue.
Like, dude, shut up.
There was this line of dialogue where
oh God, you're gonna say it again.
Yes, where the woman character, I forget her name, but like she tells Jean-Claude her name, and he's like, "What type of a name is that?" She's
Nat.
like,
Oh yeah, Nat. Is it like I'm named after a bug?
Yeah, you're named after a bug. And she's like, "Well, what type of a name is Chance?" And Jean-Claude Van Damme says, "My mama took one." And that was a line that was in like all the trailers for this
And
movie.
Kadish has said that every day since we watched that movie.
I love how ridiculous that line is.
fantastic.
I can't
He's like,
help it.
babe, my mama took a chance. Shut up.
But my second favorite scene is where they're in the bayou and they're running away from these guys hunting them. Jean-Claude Van Damme and the woman.
Where the f did they get the helicopter?
I know where he's going with it.
And there's a scene where a snake comes out.
Oh yeah.
And it's a rattlesnake, poisonous rattlesnake. It's about to bite this, gnat. And Jean-Claude Van Damme, lightning fast, reaches out and grabs it. And before it can bite him, he literally punches it out. He knocks it out with a punch.
He doesn't kill it.
He doesn't
He
kill
just
it.
renders it unconscious.
And
that
then-
way they
and
can
then-
use it later.
And then he sets a trap because he pulls off the snake's rattle.
He doesn't
pull it off.
He bites it off.
He
Bites
bites it
off
off,
the
yes.
snake's
Thank-
rattle so
thank
that
you.
it can't warn
Yeah.
people that are hunting them.
And then he sets a trap. So like when someone trips this tripwire, the snake like attacks them from a tree and bites them on the face.
The worst snake attack I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
it's bad.
It came from like 20 feet away, like an arrow, just
There's
shot at them.
It just looked like a vacuum hose that somebody like super glued teeth onto.
there's things in this movie that just had me rolling in my chair. It was just like it's like why does this police detective have this strange woman and her transient boyfriend investigating crimes with her?
They're all partners now.
Well, they set that up by showing that the police were on strike.
Okay.
And so they didn't have any real backup in the city. And that's
like,
why the hunters
I'm going to
were
go to
there.
the police station and file a missing persons report, and I'm going to investigate the report with the cop,
Yeah.
with my transient.
Pay attention, Atlanta.
It was the
Gunslinger.
90s. That happened all the time.
For real.
If you need help,
For real.
just
Also,
go get
and I
some
love
homeless people to help you.
these movies. It's like the thugs are worse shots than stormtroopers.
Yep.
Can't hit anything. And Jean-Claude, as good as he is a kicker, he can't miss anything with a gun.
Well, he was.
It's
using
incredible.
He's in a shotgun, so it was.
Well, no, I'm talking like when he's like surfing on the motorcycle.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
With the gas tank, and he jumps over the
Oh, the
thing. and
explosions.
Oh yeah, the explosions were great.
That's the biggest set piece in the movie, though, that we got to talk about, which is the game of chicken between the SUV and the motorcycle that Jean-Claude surfs on
Yep.
and then jumps over the SUV when it impacts
It became a skateboard instead of a motorcycle.
It is the most ridiculous. And plus, it's funny because like you can see the shots where it's obviously the stuntman.
Yeah.
And then the shots with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and it's like over cranked, and you can tell they're going like 2 miles an hour.
Oh man, that stuntman's hair was even better than Jean-Claude.
Yeah, that was the
pretty dope.
point where the movie completely jumped the shark.
Oh
for me.
yeah.
When
I'm
he
like,
jumps over the SUV.
Really?
Yeah,
That
it's
far?
like, yeah. It was like, okay, I'm done.
He was on board up until then.
And we weren't even to Wilford Brimley yet.
And you can divide this movie up to pre-motorcycle surfing and post-motorcycle surfing because after that scene, they go into the bayou, and it's like a completely different movie.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because the entire third act, the climax takes place in a Mardi Gras graveyard warehouse.
Yes.
In the middle of the swamp.
Which
In
is
the middle of
real.
the swamp, yeah.
Which is real. I want to preface this with the fact that those graveyards of those giant like floating parade for the Mardi Gras thing,
yeah.
that's a real thing.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like this was probably shot in a real Mardi Gras graveyard. I don't think they built all that stuff. I think that was probably like, hey, here's this warehouse of all this rotting
No,
stuff.
I think they actually did film a lot of this movie in New Orleans.
They filmed all of it there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's one thing I wanted to talk about was like, has everyone here been to New Orleans before?
No, I've never been there.
Okay, so we have. I've been there several times, and during this movie is the least crowded I have ever seen
Yeah,
any
they're in the
street
French
in New
Quarter.
Orleans
They're in the
my
French
life.
Quarter, and there's no one there.
Yeah, they're like the only people. It's like I don't
during
know,
the shootout?
like anytime.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of the day, she like goes to a diner. Everyone's in the diner. No one's on the street. And like these thugs come out and they're like, we're just going to rape this girl right here against your
was the
car.
90s.
And there's no one on the
yeah.
street. Like the homeless guy comes running through. There's like 6 people on the street at that point because he needed to yell help to people. Like there was no one. I was like, this is ridiculous. That was from the beginning. Opening shot. I was like, this is New Orleans? There's no people around.
Yeah, it's
No,
completely empty.
I called bullshit from the opening scene. I was like, bullshit. You would never be able to walk down a street in New Orleans with no people. Unless this movie was set in the post-apocalypse.
It is set up in the movie. They mentioned that. Well, the reason, and you said this a little bit ago, but the reason why they're there is because the city is in unrest.
Yeah,
and it's easy to get away with crimes.
The police department's on strike.
Yeah.
at this
I don't
point.
remember that part.
You don't remember that? That was a
No,
conversation of like, we move around.
It didn't matter.
to different parts of the world.
When Nat went to the cop to put in the missing persons report for her dad, they had police picketing out in front, and so like they were kind of setting up that there was a police strike going on, and basically the reason that the hunts were taking place in New Orleans at that moment were because they could get away with it. They could get away with killing people without worrying about the police kind of cracking down on them, and they travel to all these different places that have like, civil unrest, specifically so that they can have these hunts without being interfered with.
Man, there's probably all kinds of hunts going on around the country right now.
Tell me about it, right? That was one of the things that I wanted to ask you. We'll go around the table real quick. Would you be able to survive this movie if you
Hell
were
no.
one of the volunteers?
No,
No?
not at all.
No? Jude?
I can't take on both Lance Hendrickson and Arnold Vosloo.
No, man, I got bad knees.
Yeah, what about you, Vader? Could you survive being a volunteer?
No,
No?
hell no.
You think you could?
Hell yeah.
Back in the day, maybe.
Hell yeah, I could.
Not right now.
Those guys didn't even try to escape.
Dude, I would be
They
that guy.
ran in a straight line.
I would be that guy hiring the homeless people to pass out porn flyers, getting his ear cut off with a pair of scissors.
yeah.
That guy. Oh man, this movie is.
I would have
bananas.
done a better job if I was the girl looking for her dad, though. I think I could have survived better than Nat could. But as one of the homeless volunteers, nah, dude, I'm dead. 5-minute head start, I might as well just sit down.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to run for my last 5
I
minutes
did-
of life. I'm just going to sit down.
I did have to laugh. You reminded me of that scene when Jean-Claude comes and kicks the thugs' ass. That they just got her bent over that car.
Yeah.
And she stays bent over the entire fight.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
And they're like he's like holding her down while he's like kicking their ass or something. It's funny. It's just like, that's really indignant. Really, really not a flattering scene for that chick in that
But
movie.
it's also funny because like they add in like this like kind of forced romance between Chance and Nat.
Oh yeah.
And in the director's cut, there's actually like a sex scene where like her and Jean-Claude like get it on.
Was there boobs?
Really?
I don't know, but the
Did you have your hand over your eyes?
they cut it out because they were trying to get the R rating, and because the MPA originally gave this an NC-17, which is like the kiss of death for the movie. So I think this movie went through like 18 different versions or something like that, where they were trying to like cut it down without completely destroying.
Which explains why it's so choppy.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
It really is. But like, there's so much stuff in this movie that is just like you don't get from most movies. Like, there's a scene where Jean-Claude Van Damme kicks a guy in the face and then unloads a clip right into his belly with his pinky finger.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh no, that's the bump stock. That's the bump stock technique.
But another really interesting thing here was that you get to see like actors' faces as they're impacted with like the punches in here, and that's not CGI.
No, that's real stunt work.
Yeah, and I mean like you can kind of recognize the guys who are like getting kicked in the face and stuff because like you've seen them in other movies as stuntmen, but like it's John Woo's style. It's just this over the top, balletic, like beautiful violence that he does really well. And the whole final act where like they're dual wielding pistols and firing at each other point blank and missing and stuff like that. Like that's all like
Yeah, that whole
just
scene where
vintage
they're back to back on
Yeah.
the wall.
Oh,
That was classic John Woo
Fantastic.
there. Yeah, you've seen that in lots of movies. But
Yeah, there's a scene where Jean-Claude Van Damme and Arnold Vosloo are on opposite sides of this wall. And they're kind of like having a little conversation
Talking to each other.
as they're like reloading their guns.
Imhotep for people who don't know is that.
That's who that was.
Imhotep from The Mummy.
It's like I know who that guy is.
Yeah, dude.
I've seen him in other movies, but I could not figure it out. Yeah.
We got to talk about that movie someday.
Someday.
God, I love that movie.
Yeah, and there's a scene where they're reloading their guns and having a little conversation, and they just turn around and like point their guns at each other.
Miss.
But they're shooting through a wall, so like that's why they're missing. They can't see each other.
This movie is the very definition of what I like to call awesomely bad movies. Like, it's so hard to watch, but you can't turn away. It's awesomely bad.
That third act
It's terrible.
inside the warehouse inside the graveyard, I loved it. Every minute I was like, yes, give me more.
Yeah.
I kind of chalk this movie up to movies that I'm glad I rewatched,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to care if I don't see it again for 15
Same.
years.
Yeah.
So
But like there's that scene where in that warehouse where Jean-Claude Van Damme lures one of the motorcycle guys towards him, and he kicks a can of gasoline
Oh yeah.
up in front of the guy's face and then shoots it with a shotgun, and it just
It
blows
ignites.
up. Yeah, it just
everybody's
blows up.
using incendiary rounds in this movie because every shot is an explosive. It's amazing.
yeah.
And then Wilford Brimley's there with his bow and arrow.
I was just going to say, we need to talk more about Wilford Brimley.
Like he's on horseback shooting a bow and arrow.
he's Rambo.
He's
Yeah.
like
He's old
galloping
man
to,
Rambo.
He's Rambo.
galloping
Yeah.
to battle.
And they do one of those fake outs where like they shoot him, so you think, oh no, Uncle Duvet is dead. And then like at the end, after all the bad guys are dead, they go to Uncle Duvet, and he sits up and he's like, oh, this is bad. And he pulls out his flask that caught the bullet from his inside vest pocket. He's like, oh no, that was my favorite
he
flask.
does this very terrible French Cajun accent
yeah,
the whole
terrible.
movie
I
that
thought it was
kind of comes
great.
and goes. It's so awful.
Because Wilford Brimley's original accent is just kind of like very kind of cowboyish.
Uh-huh.
And to listen to him try to do like a French Creole accent, it's just like, it's so cringy.
It's so cringeworthy.
Fantastic mustache. though.
Uncle Wilford. Yeah.
Fantastic mustache.
Uncle Duvet.
Uncle Duvet. Oh yeah, I
So-
love. One of the things I've learned about this, watching all these Jean-Claude movies, is that every single movie so far, except for Street Fighter, has had a very specific reason as to why he's French. And I just wanted to give him a little credit for having a little bit of backstory as to why Jean-Claude is French, even though he's an American hero. And he's all these other movies, American
Well,
Soldiers.
a lot of people in New Orleans are.
Yeah. So I was
Well-
like, man, that's solid. Solid writing.
Yeah.
Funny enough,
Good
though,
job.
like once they cast Jean-Claude, they actually rewrote the script to give him less dialogue.
He didn't need dialogue, man. He just
Mama took a
Maybe,
chance.
punched people.
His mama took a chance. That's right.
you know, if they need to do a resurgence after this Van Johnson's show, they need to do a Highlander rework or redo, and he can play the Sean Connery role.
Ooh.
He can be the Spaniard.
The Spaniard.
A French Spaniard.
French Spaniard.
Get Christopher Lambert.
All right.
So scale of 1 to 10.
Ooh.
Yes. What's your final rating?
Okay, so for an actual
On the
movie,
scale of awesomely bad.
Awesomely bad scale. Okay, this is not a regular movie
like,
scale.
This is a film.
Yeah.
No.
Stick your nose up. My film rating for this movie is like probably 3, maybe 2 out of 10. It's
Okay.
terrible. The editing is
But
terrible.
on the scale of awesomely bad.
Awesomely bad, it's got to be like a 9.
Mm-hmm.
It's up there. Up there with the awesomely bad.
Kadish?
Kadish, what about you? With film score and then awesomely bad score.
So, from a writing perspective, it's probably a 3. But from like a fan of John Woo perspective in terms of filmmaking and stuff like that, I'd give it a 7. Awesomely bad, 9, definitely. Yeah.
Jude?
Like this is definitely one of my guilty pleasure movies.
Oh, for sure.
It is.
Is this your 1998 Godzilla?
Not necessarily. All of John Woo's American movies are kind of guilty pleasure because none of them are really good. Like Face Off. Oh my God! If we ever do it,
I love that
Face
movie.
Off,
I love that movie too.
Face Off was his next one after this, right?
if it wasn't, it was right after that one. I'm such a fan of his Hong Kong work that to me, like, there's just something special about John Woo movies, and I think I have a bit more rose-colored glasses when it comes to his stuff than the average moviegoer would, simply because I have so much respect for him. Because this is a guy, like, we wouldn't have The Matrix if it wasn't for John Woo's style of filming action. We wouldn't have John Wick if it wasn't for John Woo.
Oh, for sure.
So, like, this was the guy who basically came in and broke Hollywood out of the 1980s action mold. Like, he was the one who kind of ushered us into this modern age of action movies. So I just have a soft spot in my heart for John Woo films.
That's fair. I can dig it. Jude, what would you do for film score? Stick your nose up and then awesomely bad score.
Film school. This is a 1 or a 0 for me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's rough.
Okay.
But on the scale of awesomely bad, like 9 or 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you rate the Mullet?
Ooh, it's a real good mullet. I give this mullet, I give it a 7 on the scale of length.
There's longer mullets?
Well,
There's the Joe Dirt Mullet.
like
Billy Ray Cyrus.
like a
mullet.
10 would be so short in the front that it's like spiky,
Okay.
and then really long in the back. That's a 10.
Okay.
So,
He had a little bit of...
but for the awesomely wetness, the moisture of it,
The moisture of the mullet?
I give it an 8.5.
Quite a moist
almost
mullet.
made me spit out my beer.
The moistness level of his mullet.
She described a mullet by saying moist.
It's like, how moist did his mullet make you?
Yeah, like when Nat sees him after those cars clear the way, he's just like, ooh, look at that
You're
mullet.
making me cry.
Is it a Triple H wetness or
What's the name of the camera move where it's like it focuses in, but at the same time pans out? You zoom in with the camera and you pull back with the
Yeah,
dolly.
it's that Scorsese move.
Yeah, what is that called? There's a specific name for it though. I can't remember.
I feel like it's a parallax dolly, or
something like that. Yeah, it's some fancy name for it, but I recognized it right away and I was like, oh, they're doing the move. It's the Jaws move when he's on the beach and he realizes there's a shark in the water. It's that. Like, yeah. Anyway,
said Brett the Hitman Hart moist?
He did look like Brett the Hitman Hart. He needed the mirrored shades.
what about you, Vader? On a film scale, what would you give it versus a?
Probably a 3 and around a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all about the same. That's our discussion on Hard Target. Please go check this movie out. It's freaking fantastic. You will not regret it.